everyone, this is Megan Hansen with Module 10, helping students realize their learning norms. So after watching the YouTube video, we had to come up with 10 norms and pretty much explain what they mean and how I'm going to help students achieve this norm. So the first norm is relationships. What does this mean? How do students build and maintain meaningful relationships with teachers and staff members? And then how will I help the students achieve this norm is by being relatable, consistent, and helping them be successful at what they are passionate about. I am a firm believer that if you want to be successful in any area of your life, it all begins with relationships and having sound relationships with those people. It's different with students because you have to be able to be relatable, but also hold them accountable. And most importantly, kids just want to know that you care about them and have their best interest at heart. The second norm is relevance. Are students just going to jump through the hoops to pass recorded classes? Sometimes we have a difficult time with this, especially as an intervention specialist of, hey guys, I just need you to get through your first 2 years of high school so then I can try and get you into a career program for your last 2 years, just so it's more applicable and you're gaining some job experience. So when they are here though, and I'm working with them, I do try and relate it to their everyday life. And I try and tie the class assignments that they're doing into hey, you really got to do some problem solving skills. You're going to need that a lot when you go into this field. The third norm is time. How are students' classes going to be paced, and how do we ensure that the material is being covered in depth? I'm going to help students achieve this norm by just having a class discussion. What do you want to learn more about? And then try and provide some individual extension opportunities. The other thing is just having student-led groups, researching topics and presenting them as an alternative assessment. We do something at the start of our class where they do a career cluster inventory and they have to identify the skills necessary to excel in that job or career that they have. So we try to tie things back to, hey, you need to be able to do X, Y, and Z if you want to succeed in this field. Time. That's the fourth norm. This is something that I really struggle with as an educator because should and do all students need to learn in the same sequence and at the same pace? So one of the things that I try and do, which is very time consuming, is to have the students take a pre-assessment and then based off of those results, structure the lessons around what the students already know compared to what they need to know. I try to present the information differently instead of just doing hey, here's a PowerPoint, take the notes. I know ed puzzles have become really popular for visual learners. And then the thing I struggle with the most, especially just being at the high school, is if a student doesn't understand a topic, that's okay, move on and come back to it. Obviously that's challenging depending on if you're teaching math and you need to understand that topic. But I think sometimes we just get stuck as educators as doing that. The fifth norm is play. So this is probably one of the hardest things that all educators feel with is, will I be able to try new things, or am I going to have pressure from administration to kind of get done going through all the content standards and making sure my kids have good end of course exam scores and map testing scores, or am I going to have the ability to try new things to see if it benefits students or not? How do I help students achieve this norm is by setting an end goal and allowing students to arrive there differently. So a couple years ago, I was with a science teacher and we did something really cool but very unorthodox that our kids and parents struggled with, and it was called the grid method. So basically we would have the entire unit mapped out and then we would have checkpoints along the way. So if the unit would be 3 weeks, we'd be okay, after 4 days, you need to have these done. After 5 days, you need to take the quiz. Once you're done with these tasks, you can do this. So it was more self-paced for the students, and then we just provided all the resources, and we were in the classroom as a resource too. This really encouraged problem-based learning, and then we emphasize the fact that life is nothing but trials and errors. And so we really praise them for doing that. Like the kids would get frustrated. They're like, oh, I spent so much time doing this and it's wrong. But instead of them thinking that way, we wanted to change it up. You spent all that time doing something and you found out it just didn't work. And that's okay. So a lot of it's just mindset too. Our administration was supportive in that. We have not gone back to it though because then COVID hit. But that was just something that I really enjoyed and found a good tie-in for this assignment. The sixth norm is is practice. And one of the things that I thought about was how do I deepen practice for learning? And I worked with a teacher who talked about the power of E, which is just exempting kids. So one of the things that I struggle with is if a student does well on an assessment, but they're not very good at doing homework or in-class assignments because of other reasons, if they've showed mastery on the test, then why can they not just be exempted from those other assignments? If the true goal is to learn the content and they're displaying that, then they shouldn't be penalized for not doing the homework. The other thing to think about is just to use different methods to present information so students can then pick which works best for their style of learning, and then obviously providing extensions for additional practice. Norm 7 is choice. So are we all on the same path, or can we make our own choices based on our ability? So I kind of tied that back into interest inventories. So we identify what's important to the students. We try and create classes that relate to what they're passionate about. And then we even find ways to make sure that they have some type of passion class. So if a student really likes art, we can put them in a ceramics class because they like working with their hands. If they like working with their hands, we can do like wood shop. So just making sure that they have some type of built-in, I don't want to call it a break throughout the day, but something that they truly enjoy and kind of almost as like a coping skill to like make it through the day and like find purpose for coming to school is really important. The eighth norm is authenticity. So I want to always make sure, is my work significant? Is it having an impact beyond school? I want to make sure that my students are achieving this norm by explaining to them, hey, this is why we're going over this lesson today. I have to make sure that I'm honest when questions arise, and I have to be able to connect it to their future. So a lot of times when I was reading this, I just kept thinking back to my toddler, and she always asks why. Like, why do I have to put my shoes on? Why do I have to do this? Why do I have to eat all my vegetables? And I want to make sure that I'm giving her sound answers and I'm being honest about them, which is the same as what we should be doing in the classroom. Norm 9 is challenge. So I want to make sure I'm always thinking in my head, is this busy work, or am I giving an opportunity to truly display their abilities? How am I going to help students achieve this norm? Just come out and ask them, what do you want from this course this year? Continue to ask that over the course of the school year. Make sure that I'm constantly praising high quality work or the effort that goes into it, and I'm explaining how my assignments are building problem solving skills, as well as just communication and collaboration. This is a big one, especially just being an intervention specialist. When I have to help kids, our English department does a lot of ICE cycles, which is like introducing, citing, and explaining. And at one point this year, I've already had to go down and ask the English teacher, like, hey, if they've shown mastery on this, do they have to continue to do the ICE cycle? We actually had a really good conversation about it, and she just wants the kids to continue to practice, which is fine, but then it shouldn't be taken for a grade. They need to be doing something else that's more challenging of just the same assignment over and over, but with different books or articles. The 10th norm is application. And what that means is, where can the student apply what they are learning? The application makes me think about the depth of knowledge, level 4, where The students should be able to take all that we have taught them and then apply it to outside of the school setting. So how can I help students achieve this norm? Just going back to that career cluster inventory, identifying job skills, employability skills that are going to be necessary for them to succeed in life, explaining the purpose behind learning, and then most importantly, just showing those real life applications. This is also talking about the extension piece and making it more applicable to the student's life. So how did the standards correlate? This assignment connects to the previous module 9 because it's creating norms, but for our students to follow and for us to explain and model. This is relevant because in the classroom, we should always be thinking about our norms, how to model them, how to engage students, how can we set up our classroom, an eventual school culture, like what do we want to create? What do we want to be the skills that the students take away from their year with us? And then the reflection, I am a firm believer that we want to focus more on the skills that the students are learning rather than the content we're using to teach those said skills. This assignment made me think about how desperately our educational standards just need to be restructured along with just the pathway to graduation. Does a standard really need to mean to take a certain amount of classes? Why can't kids kind of have their own choices of pathways, different avenues of graduating? Why do we have to put so much emphasis on end of course exams in the state of Ohio along with MAP test scores? When we're telling our students about those things, it's like we're putting the focus on our test results and the data rather than the norms and the skills that the kids should acquire to be successful in life. Those were just some of my concluding thoughts. And then that was our reference from the YouTube video, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.